Hello and welcome. Thank you for popping into my channel. If you are new here, it would really be helpful if you'd like and subscribe. Comment below with anything that you need help with or topics you'd like me to cover, and check out my website, consultingninja.tech. With that out of the way, let's get right to it. I keep getting more requests for the more complicated topics, and today is no exception. We are going to dive right in. I'm going to show you guys how to create a forgot my password system from scratch so that regardless of what stack you're using, you will be able to implement this in your application after watching this video. The one thing that I'm going to make use of here is email.js in order to send the reset link for me. That's just to save a little bit of time so I don't have to set up an SMTP server myself, but this same process would work just as well using your own emailing server. If you're not familiar with email.js, I have done a video on that previously, and I will link to the video in the description of this one. Let's get right to it then. The very first thing that we need to do is inside of our login page, we need to add a link to go to the forgot password page. So underneath the login button, let's go ahead and just put another div. We can copy this class from the button above. And then we're just going to have a link with a class of reset link. And I just copy and pasted the styles. I don't want to make you guys watch me type those all out. Again, this is going to be a longer video, but it's the good stuff. This is super awesome functionality. I hope that you make use of this in your application. And it's going to take us to forgot password page, and I'm going to make this small and just say forgot password, just like that. Now inside of our login page, we just have that standard little forgot password link. So let's go ahead and create our forgot password page. Inside of routes, let's create a new folder, and we're going to call that forgot password. And then, of course, we're going to need a plus page.svelte. And what we're going to have in that page is another form. So let's create a script with a lang of ts. And we need to export let form. We actually can copy and paste most of this from the login page. So let's go ahead and copy the form out of our login page. That will save us a bunch of time typing, and then we can just make our changes here. So let's get rid of use enhance. We're not going to need that here. And then the action is going to be send reset, and then we're going to still need the email. We're not going to be sending this back. And then we just need a button. So we can get rid of the password section, and the button will just say send email. And we can get rid of, we're not going to need the link. We can get rid of that. All right, give that a save. Let's go check it out. All right, it's not super pretty, but it works. We can copy and paste the styles from the login page. That will help. Copy and paste those underneath the form. That's a bit better. All right, now we need to get right to the action, and that is going to be inside of a plus page.server.ts. Now, there's going to be quite a bit going on in this file, but the very first thing that we need to do is we need to do all of our imports. Let's go ahead and import our types first. We're going to need actions and action failure and request event from @SvelteJS/kit. We're also going to need a forgot form response from the types file //types. And we'll have to go create that. Just a quick little interface. We're going to need a fail. And then we're going to need some utility functions. From the backend utils file, we're going to need find user by email, and then one that we're going to create called set reset token. We're going to need to work with our user collection, so we need to import our database connection file. And then we need to create a new private environment variable specific key for creating a token. So you can use a UUID or whatever you want. I used a UUID. So we need those. And these are going to be from $env/static/private. And then we're also going to need to make use of bcrypt.js from bcrypt. And we're going to need that to create a token. So before we get to creating the actions, we can stub this out, but then let's go ahead and create our utility functions that we need to create. This will be send reset. All right, so inside of our backend utils, what we need to do here is we're going to modify this just slightly. We want to include the first name, so let's go ahead and do that. Just by adding first name 1. That's going to allow us to make use of the user's first name. We only want to be pulling from the database the data that you actually make use of. So I always start with the very minimum properties that I'm going to use in my application, and then as I run into something that I need to add them, I add them as I go, because it keeps things much faster. I've shown that in a previous video, the time difference between getting all of the user information versus just the fields that you're actually going to use, and it's a significant difference. So I would highly recommend that you do that in your application as well. So next we need to create a function that sets the reset token. So export const set reset token is an async function that takes a collection, and it takes a user, inside of the parentheses there, and it takes a user. We already have that type in there, so that's great. And then const result equals await collection dot find one and update. And then what we're going to pass here is an object. How we're going to search is by email, so user.email. What we're going to update comes next, and that is put $set and then an object. And here we're going to set the reset timer to user.reset timer like that. And you'll notice that we're getting some red squiggles because we also need to update our type to include that. And then we need to return result, just like that. While we're here, we might as well go ahead and write our update user password function. We're going to need that. So export const update user password. And that also is an async function. Actually, let's just copy and paste this and then just change the name to update user password. That likewise is going to take the same collection and user, except for this time we're going to set the reset timer to undefined. This is the function that will run when they actually update their password. So we want to clear out the timer and then set the password to be the new password. just like that. And then inside of our type file for our user, we need to go ahead and update that to contain a new property. Underneath palette, let's add a reset timer. That is going to be a number or null or undefined. And give that a save. Make sure that this updates. One other thing here is that I previously had a function that converted a register form to user without ID, and we want to update that here, and so we would just add in the reset timer, and that can be undefined. That way when we register a user, it has the property on there, it's not missing anything. Alright, now inside of our form types file, we need to add in an interface here for the forgot password form. I create these for all of my responses. It's just something I do. You don't have to do this, but it is nice. So the form data is actually going to be export interface forgot form data, and that's just going to have one property, an email of form data entry value. And then the forgot form response export, export interface forgot form response is going to extend forgot form data. And then what we're going to add on to the form is an error, a message of type string, and then we can copy this key string any and paste that there. We're going to need that. And then while we're in here, we might as well also add the interface for our reset form. So export interface reset form data. This is going to have a password of form data entry value type, a confirm password of the same, and then our reset form response export interface reset form response is going to have an error, a message, weak password of Boolean, and that same key like this. Copy and paste that in there as well. Now we've added on all of the interfaces that we're going to need. We can get back to our forgot password page. Alright, let's get back to it. Inside of our send reset function, we're going to need to pull out the request, and we're also going to need to make use of this fetch. So the email.js, we can't install the SDK because we're going to be sending the email or the request to send the email from our SvelteKit backend, and if you try to just install the SDK, it's not going to use the backend version of fetch, and so it just won't work. We have to make use of the email.js REST API in order to send the email, and so we need to use this fetch from SvelteKit. And let's go ahead and add our types in here, request event, and then this is going to be a promise that wraps a forgot form response or an action failure, wrapping a forgot form response. Just like that. And now it's going to yell at me saying, hey, you need to return that value. So let's get in here and start adding in what we need to add in. Very first thing that we need to do is let's get our form data. So const forgot form data equals await request.form data, and then we need to pull out the email. Const email equals forgot form data dot get email, and let's go ahead and put a null check on there and just put the empty string, prevent a major error from happening there. And then let forgot form response is going to be of type forgot form response. Let's go ahead and initialize this. We need an email, and that is going to be email.toString. We need an error, start that with false, and a message, and we'll start that as the empty string. Alright, now what we need to do is let's go ahead and put a try. We need to first see if we can find the user that somebody types in. So const collection equals await database connection. Go ahead and fire that up, and then const attempt to find user equals await find user by email, and we're passing that collection, and then we're also passing the email.toString. You could pull it out of the object if you want, if you don't want to do two conversions. Alright, so if not attempt to find user, then what we need to do is set the forgot form response error to true. We also need to set the forgot form response dot message to unable to find user, and then we need to return fail 400 and then the response forgot form response. Pretty cool. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything there. It's just yelling at us because right now we only have one condition that's going to return what we said we would return. So let's keep going. So if attempt to find user is good, that means we have our user, and we're going to continue. First, let's take the user first name, and that is the attempt to find user dot first name. And let's put that toString there. And token is going to be await bcrypt.js.hash. We need to generate a UUID, and this needs to come from an environment variable. You can just pull open your terminal if you're on a MacBook and type in UUID gen, and it will spit one out for you. And then you can copy, go to your environment variable and paste that in there. We need to use a UUID or any other, it can be a random string, but I think a UUID is better because it's a lot more secure. And then we need to create a hash using that secret reset, and we're going to concat the email .toString onto there, and we want to wait 12 rounds of salt on that to make it nice and secure. So we're going to take the first name out of the user that is attempting to reset their password, then generate a token using bcrypt, a UUID that you have in a private environment variable, and then add in their email address. And then we're going to pass that again 12 rounds of salt. Now let's go ahead and create a requireds, and these are the required things that we need to send to email.js in order to send an email. If you've not used email.js before, it's pretty straightforward. We have an email service, and you just take that name there and you put that in first. So service _ID and we just copy and paste that out. So copy and paste it in string form, and then we need our template. The template is the actual email that gets sent. In this case, we're going to send this reset template. I have this set up to automatically send to my own email address so that I can make use of that to show you guys. But what we would change here, you access the things that you're sending to email.js inside of these brackets, and so this would actually just be bracket, bracket, double brackets, and then you'd put in the email address there, and that would send it to the email address that we're sending here. But for the sake of showing you guys, I'm leaving it my own email address. But we do need the template name, and it's this template right there, so you just copy and paste that. So you put template underscore ID and then string and plop that in there. You then need to use your public key. So you put your public key in a user underscore ID. This is available inside of your account settings. They make it super straightforward. So you plop that in there, and then you need to put your access token, and that one I cannot show you. I have it in as a secret email key. That is your private key for your account. If you're using the API, the REST API, you have to include that as well. And then in a separate property called template underscore params, you put the data that you're actually sending. And what we're sending is the email address, the first name, and that's going to be user first name, and then token, and that's going to be the token that we just generated. And I'll put my public key in here. It doesn't really matter. It's restricted anyway. I have it restricted by domain, so it's only going to work from here. It's not going to work from anywhere else. And then what we need to do is we need to use the fetch. So let's go ahead and come down here and put const response equals await fetch. And the string for this is inside of email.js's documentation for the REST API, and you can just copy and paste this from there. So paste that in there, and then we need to set some properties on that fetch, and it needs to be a post request there. Then we also need to set the body. Let's put this down a little bit, make it easier to read. So we need a method, we need the body. The body is going to be json.stringify, and that's going to be the requireds. That's what we're sending, that object that we just created. And then we need to add some headers. And what we need to send is content-type, and we need to set that to application/JSON, just like that. Then what we need to do is check the response. If response.status, they're only going to send you two. It's either going to be 200 or 400. So if it's equal to 200, then what we need to do is we need to set the time. I'm going to do it this way. So my reset email is only going to be good for 5 minutes. You can do whatever you'd like. I try to make mine as secure as possible. If they need to send it again, they can certainly do that. I'm also going to date this 5 minutes in the future and then compare it that way. But if you wanted to just date stamp the current time and then compare it later on to the additional what would have been 5 minutes, doesn't really matter. Just whatever time period you're comfortable with, that's what you should implement here. So the current time is date.now, like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to convert that to a string, .toString, and then we're going to parse an integer out of it. So parse int, like that, wrap the whole thing. So now we're going to end up with current time, whoops, I have an extra I in there, current time being a number. And now let's take that number and say const 5 minutes is the current time plus, and then this is in milliseconds, so it's 300,000 milliseconds. So 1, 2, just like that. So now we have our 5 minutes from now. That's perfect. So let's go ahead and create an updated user. The updated user is going to be the user attempt to find, and then the reset timer we're going to set to the 5 minutes. Just like that. If you wanted to console.log this would be a good spot to do that. But now let's go ahead and make that update. So const update reset token equals await, and we're going to use that set reset token function that we wrote earlier, and we just pass in that collection and the updated user. And that's going to go to the database and attempt to set the reset timer property on that user to be the value that we just created. That's 5 minutes from now. Alright, so let's go ahead and check this now. Const update reset token result equals, copy this, copy dot OK. It sends back 1 if it's successful or 0 if not, so we can just turn that into a Boolean just like this. So now we have a Boolean to check. So let's do that. If not, copy and paste that in there. If the update reset token result is false, that means that it was unable to set the reset token timer in our user, so we need to bail out. So then we set the forgot form response dot error to true, and we set forgot form response dot message to error setting reset timer. Please try again shortly. If it was successful, then we want to, and we can copy and paste that again. If it was successful, then what we want to do is set the forgot form response dot error, make sure it's false, and the message, you can copy and paste that, to check your email. Alright, now we need to check to see if the response was an error. So if the response dot status, what we want to do here is greater than 400, because even though their documentation says a fail will always be 400, I actually found that they're sending 400s and 403s, so just do greater than 400, greater than or equal to 400, or you could just do greater than 399. However you want to put that. Then we want to set these two properties on our response object to, that would be an error for sure, and then we can just see error sending email, and then just on the outside of that try, find the outside, and we need to put a finally, return the forgot form response. Whew, that was a lot of work. Let's go ahead and give that a save. Inside of our application, let's put an email address and send, and we'll check the email, and there is my email coming from email.js. Hello, sorry you lost your password. Click the link below. Now we need to do the second portion. The second portion of this is we need to set a page that's going to receive that new request. And the very first thing that we need to do is make that very, 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 very secure. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and create the page. So inside of routes, let's create a new folder called reset password. And you guessed it, we're going to need a plus page.svelte And the page itself is going to be pretty straightforward. What we need is a script. And we're going to export let data and export let form. And then we're going to make a reactive statement here called email. This is going to be data .email, just like that. And then the form, we can actually go ahead and copy and paste from our login form again. So just copy, including the styles, we can just copy all of this all the way up to the H2 and put that in there. Looks like I missed one of my alligator teeth there. And we're going to get rid of the use enhance on here again. The action is going to be reset password. And here what we're going to need is we're going to need a password. So password, this will be password. Get rid of that value. We're not sending anything back here. The ID will be password. The type will be password. The name will be password. And then we need a confirm. So let's make this confirm. Confirm password. Confirm password. It's required. We want the ID and the name to match, but not the type. We want to leave that the password type. And we can get rid of that forgot my password, because that's why we're here. But we do need a submit button, and that should say, and just put reset. That is good like that. This will be where we display our error message. If we want to display an error message there, we'll send that back from the back end. So we can go ahead and save that. And if you want to check it out, you can come into your address bar and go to reset password. And this is what it looks like. Just a password, confirm password, and the reset button. So the way this is going to work is we're going to create a new file here, and it's going to be a pluspage.server.ts. Now, when they click that email link, we're going to send in the URL itself, we're going to send the email address and the token that we just created. And then we're going to need to compare that to what we know it should be using the bcrypt.js. But first, before we even get there, we need to make sure we have all of our information. So let's just do this one piece at a time. The very first thing that we're going to need to do is import all of our stuff. So import the database connection to work with our collection of users. We need to import our find user by email with password. We're also going to need to import that function that we wrote to update the user password. Now let's import redirect. We're definitely going to need to make use of that, not the type, but the actual function. That happens on autofill every time for me. And fail, we're going to need to use fail. And then we need some types. We're going to need to import type, actions, request event, action failure, and redirect, all from @SvelteJS/kit. Fix my little spelling mistakes there. And then we're also going to need to import our secret reset. That's the same environment variable that you used to create the hash, so make sure to import that same one. And then from our previous work, let's import the check password function that makes sure that we have a strong password. If we're letting the user reset the password, we still need to make sure that it's a strong password. And then we also need to import bcrypt from bcrypt. And then last but not least, we need to import the type reset form response. So before we can even get to the actual form action that will reset for a user, we need to lock this route down. And in order to do that, we use a load function. So export async function load, and we're going to need to use the URL. And what we're going to do here is pull out I'll call it the search email. And that is going to be a url.searchparams.get email, and then the token, search token, url.searchparams.get token. If you wanted to print those out, this would be a good place to do that. But the very first thing that we need to do is, if either of the required parameters are missing, we need to get out of there. So if not search email or not search token, we're going to go ahead and just throw a redirect right away. Bail out. Whoops. Outside of the if function, throw a redirect, and it'll be a 302, and we're going to send them back to the login page. And then what we need to do is, let's go ahead and set let auth equals authorized false, and email will be search email. Alright, now we can get to checking the next items, which is, so if search email and search token are both there, then we can proceed. And the very first thing we need to do is get our collection of users, await database connection, and we need to find the user that we're attempting to reset. So const user attempting reset equals find user by email with password, collection, sending the collection and the search email. The very first thing that we need to check now is we need to check to make sure that the reset timer has in fact been set. Let's go ahead and do that by saying if not user attempting reset dot reset timer, then we're going to throw redirect again back to 302 and send them back to login. And I forgot to put await. Await. Alright, so if the reset timer hasn't been set at all, we need to get them off of this page as well. Something fishy going on there. Get out of here. So redirect them back to the login. If the timer is there, then what we need to do is we need to see if it's expired or not. And in order to do that, we want to do a const current time equals date.now, and the reset timer is the user attempting reset timer. And then what we want to do is just compare the two, and we can parse this the same way as before, .toString, and then parse int. That way we make sure that we are absolutely certain we are comparing numbers to numbers. And what we're checking is if the current time is greater than the reset timer. Again, then we need to throw redirect, get them out of here, and we'll send them back to the login page. Since there's so many steps to this, you certainly could, after each thing that you're checking or before, console.log that stuff off, just to make sure that you're getting this far and no typos or anything like that. So if the timer is expired, we need to get them out of here. Next, we need to check the last thing, and that is the actual authentication token. So const auth attempt, and we want to await bcryptjs.compare. And what we're comparing is the secret reset, our environment variable, with the email .toString, and we're comparing that to the search token that was sent. So just on the other side of this, whoops, not search email, search token. And then you guessed it, once again, we need to check that. So if not auth attempt, that means that the token they sent was no good. So then let's go ahead and throw another redirect, get them out of here, send them back to the login page. So now that we've checked all of those things, the parameters are in fact there, the reset timer is there, the reset timer is not expired, and the authentication token checks out, then we know for sure that they are authorized. So auth.authorized equals true, return auth, and then outside of here, let's go ahead and return that no matter what. Alright, so that is our load function. So now if you try, let's go ahead and save that, and you'll see I automatically got kicked off that page because the parameters are not there. So if I try to go back to /reset password, it just redirects me back to the login page. And that's exactly what we want. We want that thing locked down super tight. With that out of the way, now we can get to the actual form action, which is going to allow us to reset the password if all of that stuff checks out. So export const actions of type actions. And again, that's that object. The action that we're setting is the reset password. And that is going to be an async function that is going to make use of the request, like that, request event. And it's going to be a promise wrapping that reset form response, or action failure wrapping that reset form response. And sometimes I don't like TypeScript because it'll give you all those red squiggles until you get everything typed out. You're thinking that you've made a mistake. Just keep going, keep typing. Once you have it all in there, including the ending brackets, then you can see where you're at. And you'll see here that what it's yelling at me about is saying, hey, you're not returning what you said you would return. So we're in good shape. So what we need to do here is pull out the form const reset form data equals await request dot form data. Let's get our form data. Const password is equal to reset form data.get the password out. Let's get the password out. Then we need to get const confirm password equal to reset form data.get confirm password and an email. Const email, and let me know if you're catching on to what's going on here. You're probably asking yourself, what are you talking about? There is no email on that form. Just like that. And we should add, just to make sure none of these are null and create a bad error, let's put that nullish coalescing operator on there and just double quote afterwards so that if nothing's there, we can get our empty string there. And what I'm doing here, this load function is going to strip out the email if everything checks out and is going to return it. And then inside of the page, we're going to go ahead and grab that email and we're going to add an input right in the bottom here. It does not need to be inside of a div, and it's going to be input type equals hidden bind value to that email, that reactive email that we're pulling out from data email. And it's going to have a name of email and an ID of email as well. So when that load function runs, as long as everything checks out, it's going to return. Well, if it doesn't check out, we would never be here on this form anyway. We would get kicked off. But if everything checks out, it's going to return that email, and then we'll have that in our form action by binding it here and then passing it to our action. Pretty cool stuff. So let's save that and now go back into our form action there, and let's finish this out. What we need to do is put our semicolon there, and then let reset response, and we can type that of reset form response. Let's go ahead and initialize that. Error false, message empty, weak password false. Alright, and now let's go ahead and check our password. We just need to start crossing those items off. So the first thing we're checking is if password.toString is not equal to, we need to first make sure that the password and confirm password both match. If not, we'll kick that back. So let's check that first. Confirm password.toString. So if the password and the confirm password fields don't match, we're going to go ahead and set the reset form response. The error to true, and the message to passwords do not match. If the email somehow is missing, then we also need to bail out. So it would be error true, message email missing, and we'll return fail again there. This would be 400, and we're going to return that reset form response, and then we can copy and paste that in there as well. Now we need to check password strength. So if the passwords match, then we can continue. If the email is there, we can continue. So is const is password strong. This is exactly how we did it for the login page, and we're going to run that check password, sending the password.toString, and that way we'll know if the password is weak or not. So if not is pass strong, then we're going to set the error to true. We're going to set the message to password does not meet requirements, and then we're going to send that fail back. So copy and paste that. Alright, now with all of those additional checks out of the way, we can get to resetting the password. So let's go ahead and fire up that const collection, and let's go ahead and find that user attempting, let's get our camel case, attempting reset equals find user by email with password, and we're going to pass that collection and the email.toString. So if not user, we want to check that reset timer one last time here. If they sat on this page forever, we're going to kick them off. So if the timer expired while they're sitting here being indecisive, or they opened this page and sat there forever, we want to check the timer one last time. So reset, let's go ahead and we can copy this. And I forgot to put my await again. Get our awaits in there. I don't know why I keep forgetting those. So if that reset timer, we're just going to double check that again. If it's no good, we're going to set the error to true. The message to problem with reset timer, resend link. Although they're never going to see this, honestly, because once we return the fail, if that reset timer is not there, then they're going to get kicked off the page right away anyway. But just in case, let's put it in there anyway. You never know. Maybe there's some bug someday that would let that happen. So now we want to check that timer one last time here and see if it's actually not expired. So const current time equals date.now.toString, and let's go ahead and parse int out of that. Reset timer. That's that user attempting this right here. We can copy and paste. What we're checking is the same thing as above. If the current time is greater than the reset timer, then we're going to also bail out. And we can just copy and paste this. Again, if this is the case, they're going to get kicked off as soon as this is reloaded anyway. So we can do that just in case something happens and they don't get kicked off, but they will, because that load function will run. We are triggering a full page reload when they submit this form, and I want to do that because I want this to be as secure as possible. All of that stuff still checks out. The reset timer is not expired. Then we need to create a hashed password. So const hashed password equals await bcrypt.js.hash, and we're going to send that password.toString, and we're going to give it 12 rounds of salt. Then we need to set our new user to be a spread of the user attempting reset. We can copy, paste that, and then we're going to reset the password to be the new hashed password. And then what we need to do is just await update user password, sending the collection and that new user. And then after that's done, let's throw another redirect to the same location, back to that login page. Once the password, you can, if you wanted to at this point, you could log the user in, set a cookie and all that. I feel like most large corporations, that's not the case. When I've reset my password, they just send me back to the login page and require me to sign back in again. And so that's what I'm doing here. But you can do yours however you'd like. Now we just need a finally return the reset form response, just like that. And so now if we save that and I come to the application and I click forgot my password, I can enter the email address of my user here and I can hit send. We do need to send a success message there that looks like it's missing. I will be sure to include that in the source code. Here is the email, so let's go ahead and click that link. And now you can see that everything checked out. The email address was good, the token was good, and so here I am at the password change form, and I can enter in a new password. Let's go ahead and enter in something secure, meets the requirements, and I can hit reset, and then everything was successful. It sent me to my login page, and now I can log in using that new password. And there we have it. I am all logged in. I've successfully reset my password. This was a great project. I know this was a very long video. I'll make the source code available for this. I hope that you guys have found this helpful. If you did, please like, share this video with others, and subscribe. It would really help my channel out. Take care, and as always, have a great day.